Guys, so we are here, we're at West Midlands, we are on the third hole. This is a par 5, and as promised I said I was going to play a little bit more golf this year, giving you instructional content from on side the golf course. I sort of feel might give it more context, so let's see if that really works. Anyway, I'm going to hit a driver here, and in today's video I want to talk very much about the wrist position and what is known as the wrist hinge, and how you can produce this wrist hinge and it has an influence on different types of shots. So for the driver, the first thing that we've got to do with the driver, particularly on this tee shot, is I can't hit anything left, right? So fingers crossed that doesn't happen. What we need to do is when I'm producing this wrist hinge movement here, and I literally, if I just keep my arm nice and still and just produce the wrist hinge, what you can see is the way that it helps the club head draw nice and straight back. And that's one of the things that we're really looking for. Golfers that struggle with driver often have a tendency to either bring the club too much inside too early, so end up moving too much, or potentially the vice versa, where you end up lifting the club up too much and then slicing across it, particularly when you're faced with a hole where there's a lot of sort of trepidation right and left. And what we want to do is try and trust the swing, so we can just get the feeling that the club is just travelling up our plane line and swinging in a pretty straight line. So that all being said, let's see if I can hit anything pretty straight that would resemble that, whilst introducing a little bit of awareness on that wrist position. So let's see what happens. Oh, as long as that's carried it long enough, that'll work well. So after a good opening tee shot there, I've now got still a very long way to the hole, probably over 350 yards away. I'm going to hit driver again. The reason why I'm hitting driver again is because when I get a lot of questions about how to hit driver, a lot of people sort of tee the ball really high, and similar to what I said on the first tee there, they end up sort of moving excessively to try and hit up on the ball, and they don't really move very well. And what I tend to encourage a lot of students to do is learn to hit the driver off a very low tee peg first, because although this shot may not come off particularly well, I'm going to have a go either way. The point of the matter is that you could hit driver off the floor. It's just because it has very little loft, it's not going to necessarily go particularly high. But the point of the matter is, I'm going to do exactly the same thing again. I'm going to get myself set up. You'll see this little bit of wrist hinge just helps that club travel in a nice straight line in that early backswing. And then I'm going to try and hit a driver off the deck somewhere where we're going. Let's see how this goes. Oh, not so good. But it can be done, just with slightly better technique than that one. Better, more like that. After that much better rendition of that other attempt with driver off the floor, I've slowly got myself pretty close to the green. This is a long par 5, straight into wind, straight uphill. Now, I've only got 20 yards remaining, so it should be a relatively straightforward up and down. I haven't really practiced chipping in a while, so we'll see. The point is, I'm uphill lie, so I'm going to go for a club with a little bit more, little less loft, so I've gone for a 9-iron. But really what I want to try and highlight with a bit of chipping and putting here is how the back of my right wrist still plays a very significant role in all of these shots. So as I get set up here, what I'm not going to do is sort of draw the club back like this. I'm still going to break the back of my right wrist, and you can see the way that lifts the club up in the air, and that helps me strike down. So if I play this shot correctly, I should sort of finish with that right wrist hinge still very much being in action. Let's see if I can hit a shot like that now. That should be not too bad. A little bit short, not too bad. Sort of take that. Let's see if I can knock that one in. A little bit uphill off the right hand side, so it's moving from right to left. The point that I wanted to really finish off with this video is when it comes to putting, I'm somebody who positions my right hand at the top of the club, and again you can see the way the back of my right wrist becomes and maintains this degree of hinge. What we don't want to do is ever sort of hit any shots this way, and the reason for that is because it kind of makes the angle of attack really inconsistent. So even on something like putting, which would seem like a relatively straightforward shot, we're still trying to keep the putter head nice and low to the ground. What we don't want to do is be hitting it like so, where I'm adding loft. So all that being said, the point that I really wanted to highlight in this video was how in every shot that I'm hitting, there's always going to be a degree of wrist hinge as I'm taking that club back, and that's one of the key things. So let's see if I can roll this in. Haven't hit it. Oh, I haven't hit it. Terrible golf, but it's the first time out this year More tips like this to come. Let me know if you've enjoyed this type of video rather than being in the range. That would be big appreciated. Work on the wrist hinge. See if you can do better than me. I'll see you guys again really soon.